Welcome to this explainer on database scaling for application developers. You know when an app just grinds to a total halt? We usually blame the front end, right? Or maybe the network? Well, it turns out a lot of those performance issues aren't actually application problems at all. They're database problems. So let's dive into how we actually fix that.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We've got 6 clear stages to get through today: the hidden bottleneck, foundations, traffic, workload separation, advanced tactics, and finally, the journey.
Starting off with Section 1, the hidden database bottleneck.
Picture this. You've built a platform. It works beautifully for 1,000 users, but then you hit 100,000 and things just start breaking down. Your data grows, and suddenly you're asking yourself, why is the API so slow? Honestly, it's a question we've probably all frantically typed into Slack at 2 in the morning. You might start seeing symptoms, like checkouts failing because payment and order records are just fighting for resources. Or maybe your API becomes incredibly unstable because heavy queries are locking up essential tables. Your servers look completely overloaded, and well, the panic sets in.
Well, the punchline is actually pretty simple. It's a database problem. Your beautifully written, perfectly optimized API is literally just sitting there, waiting on the database to hand over the data. And here's why this matters specifically for you. Database scaling, it is no longer just the database administrator's job. In modern development, every serious backend developer has to understand how the database scales, because the way your application code asks for data, that directly dictates your system's performance, its reliability, and its cost.
Moving right along into Section 2, Foundations, Queries and Indexes.
Now, before rushing out to buy more expensive cloud servers, we first have to look at how an application accesses data in the first place. Think about the number 1001 for a second. It perfectly illustrates the dreaded N+1 query problem. This is an absolute silent killer of application performance. Imagine you write some code to load 1,000 courses for a catalog. If your application then runs an additional, completely separate query to fetch the instructor for each one of those 1,000 courses, well, you haven't run one query. You've just executed 1,001 queries to the database. It is incredibly inefficient.
To fix this, we can rely on a few key tactics. Things like eager loading, batch loading, using efficient SQL joins, implementing data loader patterns, designing optimized APIs, and utilizing denormalized read models. It's super crucial to remember that your Object Relational Mapper, or ORM, often lazily loads data. This completely hides these N+1 issues when you're just testing locally on your laptop. But believe me, they will absolutely destroy your performance in production with real user data.
So the big takeaway here is that indexing must be evidence-based. It's so tempting to just index every single column to speed things up, right? But surprisingly, adding too many indexes actually slows down database write operations. Why? Because every single time a row is inserted or updated, the database has to update all those indexes too. Developers have to use database execution plans to see exactly how queries are running under the hood. Then you carefully match composite indexes, which use multiple columns together with your most common query patterns.
Let's move to Section 3, Traffic, Caching, and Connections.
As your traffic rises, those foundational optimizations just aren't quite enough anymore. We need to shield the primary database from being totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume of requests. And a fascinating way to do this is connection pooling. You see, opening a brand new database connection for every single user request is incredibly resource-heavy, and it's slow. Connection pooling solves this by maintaining a pool of reusable connections. Basically, your app borrows a connection, uses it, and then gives it right back. But hey, a major warning here. If you're using serverless functions that scale up massively in seconds, you can easily create thousands of concurrent connections and instantly crash your database. So you really have to configure your pool sizes carefully.
Next up, we have caching. By storing data in memory, we save massive amounts of database load for things like public course catalogs or those frequently viewed dashboards. But you have to carefully plan around freshness requirements, data sensitivity, invalidation rules, time to live, and fallback behavior. Why are we so strict about this? Well, because cache invalidation is notoriously hard. Think about it. Serving stale course recommendations to a user might be totally fine, but serving stale authorization permissions? No way. That creates a massive security risk.
Section 4, Replicas and Workload Separation.
Okay, when your data gets truly massive, workloads start getting mixed up. You've got everyday users clicking around, right alongside heavy back-office reports running in the background. To handle this, we bring in read replicas. These are basically copies of the primary database, dedicated strictly to handling read traffic. Your primary database takes all the writes, and your replicas take the reads.
This massively reduces pressure. But developers do have to design their applications around something called replication lag. It takes a little bit of time for the replica to catch up to the primary. So if a learner completes a lesson and your app instantly reads from a lagging replica, they might temporarily not see their updated progress. You just have to design for that reality.
This whole setup brilliantly illustrates a core database conflict, OLTP versus OLAP. Online transaction processing handles your fast, small user transactions, like a user creating an account or processing a quick checkout. Online analytical processing, on the other hand, handles massive analytical data scans, like generating a corporate revenue report across millions of rows. Now, if you run a massive OLAP report on your main OLTP database during peak hours, your user checkouts will grind to a complete halt. And that is exactly why you absolutely must separate these workloads.
On to Section 5, Advanced Tactics, Partitioning, and Sharding. As we enter the realm of complex enterprise tactics, I want to give a quick word of caution. These tools are incredibly powerful, but they bring a serious amount of operational complexity to your infrastructure. Let's start with keyset pagination. Traditional offset pagination, where you basically tell the database to skip 10,000 rows just to give you the next 50, fails miserably at scale. The database still has to scan and skip all those rows, which just wastes time and CPU. Keyset pagination, on the other hand, asks for the next records after a known ID or timestamp. For massive, endless data sets, like audit logs or transaction histories, keyset pagination is absolutely essential for keeping your APIs fast.
Next up is partitioning. This means dividing a massive table into smaller, physical parts, while your application still treats it logically as one single table. Imagine a massive logs table spanning years. If you use time-based partitioning, you can isolate logs by month. So if an admin queries logs for June 2026, the database only scans the June 2026 partition. It completely ignores years of other data. It makes querying incredibly fast and makes archiving old data as simple as just dropping a partition.
Then there's sharding. This is splitting your data across multiple independent databases or nodes. A huge, major takeaway here is, do not shard too early. Sharding introduces crippling complexity. Suddenly, simple SQL joins across tables become virtually impossible if the data lives on different shards. Cross-shard transactions? They become a developer's absolute worst nightmare. You should really only ever shard when your data volume genuinely exceeds what a single, highly optimized primary database can handle.
Now, if you're building a SaaS product, you'll find the comparison of multi-tenant models fascinating. Notice how your isolation needs directly correlate with your operational complexity. A shared schema is very simple to manage, but it offers pretty low isolation. A completely separate database for every single client offers perfect isolation, but massive operational complexity. I mean, imagine running database migrations on 1,000 separate databases. You also have to design against the noisy neighbor problem, where one massive client on a shared schema hogs all the resources and slows down everyone else.
Finally, Section 6, the scaling progression journey. Let's see how all this builds into a cohesive strategy, using a learning platform like Uplatz as our real-world practical example. The most important thing to grasp is that database scaling is a progression. It's not a single magic bullet. You start with step 1, optimizing your queries and your indexes. Get the fundamentals right first. Then, as traffic grows, you move to step 2, adding caching for public catalogs and read replicas to offload your heavy dashboards. As your historical data explodes over the years, step 3 is partitioning your large tables like audit logs. And finally, step 4, you shard, but again, only if absolutely necessary. It is a very logical, structured journey. Along this journey, it is so vital to avoid common, fatal developer mistakes. Please don't try scaling your infrastructure before fixing bad queries. Throwing expensive hardware at bad code never works long-term. Watch out for missing indexes on critical queries, or on the flip side, having too many indexes slowing down your writes. Never ignore that N+1 query problem we discussed earlier, and as I just stressed a moment ago, do not shard too early. Foundational discipline will always trump complex architectural solutions. We're going to wrap up this explainer with a golden rule. The best database scaling strategy is the one that solves the real bottleneck with the least unnecessary complexity. It's simple, it's effective, and it's evidence-based. Start with the basics, measure absolutely everything, and scale only when the data demands it. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder as you go back to your code today. What hidden database bottlenecks are lurking inside your own application right now, just waiting for the exact right amount of traffic to bring everything crashing down? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.